Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by the assistant to the regional manager. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. Does that extend to the British office as well as the American office?
I think they stole that joke from the British office.
I don't think anything was stolen.
I think that joke came direct from the UK.
Lovingly borrowed, and correctly applied to the thing we're going to talk about to start the show.
We sure are.
Also, hi.
Hello. We've got World Cup semi-final previews to come.
Yeah.
But first, we got the Jesse Marsch news this morning. I saw it on a little website called Bundesliga.com.
I've heard of it.
Surprising amount of German Bundesliga news on Bundesliga.com.
What's surprising? That there's not enough or that there's a whole lot?
I'm just kidding.
Gotcha.
I'm saying I'm going direct to source. Direct to source. Jesse Marsch, no longer coach of the New York Red Bulls in Major League Soccer. He has been replaced by Chris Armas. Jesse Marsch, we thought/hoped was going to be head coach of RB Leipzig in the Bundesliga. He is not.
Did you really think that?
I really thought that.
Oh, that never seemed like a realistic possibility to me. I thought it would be RB Salzburg, if anything.
In Austria?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's what is happening. Jesse Marsch is going to be assistant coach under Ralf Rangnick for the coming season. Then the following season, 2019-20, he's going to be assistant coach to Julian Nagelsmann, the very young, up-and-coming, I think he's still only just 30 or so.
I think he's 14 years old.
So he's the Hoffenheim coach who has agreed to join Leipzig in 2019-20. So Jesse Marsch, 2 years of assistant coaching ahead of him. I feel weird about this because it's a step down from head coach of New York Red Bulls.
Okay. I mean, what do you mean by that? Why is it a step down?
Because head coach to assistant coach is a step down, right? Unless, are you adjusting for European inflation?
I am.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, and I think that's part of it. And I think I'm adjusting.
I'm prepared to be talked around.
And weirdly, I think I'm adjusting for American European inflation because I do think I put that question out on Twitter. How many American managers have ever gone from managing an MLS side to a top 5 or 6 league European side? I don't think there is one. I think
Bob Bradley eventually got there, but he had to coach at a World Cup
that's
in between.
That's the thing. Right. But first he went U.S. assistant manager, then interim manager, then national team manager, then Egypt, then Norway, then eventually got a job in France. It's been a lot of bouncing around. I don't think there's many that
Are we skipping over Swansea?
Yeah, that's fine. We don't need to mention that. But I still think it you have to have some sort of introductory way to get into a position where then European teams will take you a bit more seriously. I'm sure there are people out there who are saying, well, what about Patrick Vieira? The answer to that, in my opinion, is that he's Patrick Vieira. That definitely carries a lot of name recognition, and I think City have spent a lot of money helping him get the licenses and badges he needed to get to that qualified level, but he still has that name brand. Jesse Marsch doesn't, and I think it makes sense to me that he would have to go study under the tutelage of 2 different managers, one who got RB Leipzig to the Bundesliga in the first place, the other one who is seen as this innovative, young, tactically astute manager.
Yeah.
And then I genuinely think it's either maybe he gets the Leipzig job if Nagelsmann goes elsewhere, or more likely, in my opinion, is that he gets the Salzburg job and does what he can there.
So it's like an apprenticeship at Leipzig, but then a step down in terms of size of club, but a step up in terms of position within the club.
Yeah.
If he goes to the Austrian Bundesliga and becomes head coach of Salzburg.
And then you're at a club, if he gets that Salzburg job, who are challenging for the Premier League or for the Champions League, not the Premier League. That'd be a weird move.
They've done very well in the Austrian Bundesliga if they get promoted to the English Premier League.
Hey, you never know, man. You know how these things work. Global League one day. But I think that's what you kind of have to do. And that would be a big step for an American manager. And it's also an American manager in Jesse Marsch's case, who we know kind of does different things. He took his family on the backpacking tour of the world. And stayed in hostels and stuff. I think he genuinely wants to challenge himself and learn new things. And I praised Chichi, the Brazilian manager, for taking a year off and just going around and studying to learn how to be a better manager.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty to his credit that Jesse Marsch has been sold on a long-term plan for here's how we envision you within the organization. And I think he was sold enough to go for it.
I think I'm sold as well then. And I think maybe it shows some humility and ambition at the same time from Jesse Marsch to accept the assistant coach role, but with an eye on in 3 or 4 years' time, there's maybe a head coaching role somewhere in Europe for you.
Yeah.
But here's the other reason I'm disappointed is he would have been one of my favourites to take the vacant-ish US men's national team job.
Yes.
And so to either not be considered for that or to take yourself out of the running for that for an assistant coach job, I don't know, it feels like an opportunity missed. Because I feel like if I was given the choice, US men's national team head coach, RB Leipzig assistant coach, I know which job I'd be taking.
I would guess that it was more the former than the latter, in that if you were in contention for that position, I'm guessing he was told, yeah, you're not in contention anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think he would have pursued seemingly potentially greener pastures until he was told, yeah, this one isn't an option. Because, as we've already said, national team gig elevates your profile that much more. Even if you only, win a Gold Cup and qualify for the World Cup, get knocked out in the group stage, you're still a manager who managed at the World Cup.
Yeah.
That definitely raises your pedigree. And I think, I'm guessing, was probably told, we're going to go a different way, your style, whatever, doesn't really suit what we're looking for. And then he kind of pursued other options.
Maybe the best hope, if you're someone, say like me, who would like to see Jesse Marsch take the US national team job, is US Soccer Federation gets taken over by Red Bull and absorbed into the corporation. So it'll be the Red Bull USMNT, the RBUSMNT.
I like that you say that in just knowing that if something like that ever were proposed, you would be the person leading the protest against it. I will say this, though. We talk about Major League Soccer as how it needs to be a selling league, maybe. We both have kind of come on board with that idea of embrace the idea of developing players, selling them on, then you get looked at as a league where we can go and find good quality players. Why not do the same with your managers? And I really do think that there is... I think soccer in the United States has come a long way. I think it is more respected around the world, American soccer, than it was in years past. But
that's still, a low bar to go to just a slightly higher bar.
I think exactly. Right? I think it's still a slightly higher bar. I really do think that you're going to get a lot of, you have an American accent. You probably don't know that much. I've experienced it. I know you haven't, obviously, but I've experienced talking to people from other countries. They feel the need to explain what a penalty is to me when I'm interviewing them on our soccer show. It's like, yeah, man, I know what you're doing here. And so I think that extends to coaches.
That's why I fake this British accent.
Exactly. Yeah. As we've said, Dale is from Wisconsin. We're going to keep this theory going.
But I've committed hard to this character.
Yeah, Daryl loves dairy, and that's why he went with Wisconsin. Other way around. But either way, I think it makes sense then that a manager would maybe have to do this sort of proving period, this test period. But I think it also could look very good in the end that, say, he does get a job and does look good and does bring about innovative tactics. I think other clubs might start looking at Major League Soccer and think, ooh, that's an interesting area where suddenly there's some names I recognize and there's some teams doing interesting things. Why not take a gamble on this coach or that coach?
So maybe this is just part of the...
Ben Olsen, by the way, anybody wants to take him, you're more than welcome.
Harsh. He can take care.
I love Ben Olsen.
Yeah, he can caretake a franchise that wants to just bubble along and not do anything for a good few years with the best of them.
Yeah,
right?
That checks out.
So maybe this is just part of the US, the progress of the United States and the respect that coaches like Jesse Marsch could get around the world. Maybe it just doesn't happen as quickly as we want it to because we're all so impatient, right? We're all so impatient for it to happen. It's never going to be as fast as we want it to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my final point on this one, because I know we got to keep moving because we've got games to preview.
We do, but I have 2 follow-up questions.
Okay, that's fine. I would say the one group who are certainly justified if they do feel like anger and frustration about this is Red Bulls fans. I think they're well within their rights.
New York Red Bulls fans?
Yeah. To see,
or Leipzig or Salzburg Red Bulls fans.
Excuse me. It's an important distinction to make. New York fans. New York Red Bull fans. Because it would be easier if there weren't 2 franchises there and I could just say New York, but that causes chaos. I think they are justified in feeling aggrieved, even with everything I've just said, because when it happens to your club and you're sort of very obviously are being told, you're kind of bottom of the tier in terms of where our priorities are
like your
as
head
an organization.
Your head coach is our assistant coach.
Yeah. I think that definitely grounds for frustration, as well as the fact that Chris Armas, I don't know his managerial resume off the top of my head. I don't believe he's had a head coaching job before, at least not at that level.
No, he hasn't. He's been coaching in the Red Bulls Academy and assistant coaching. Yeah.
So I think you could also be frustrated that suddenly your season is thrown into a little bit of turmoil because now you've got a new manager who doesn't have the experience and the pedigree.
And they lost the New York Derby.
And that too.
I believe. So one upside maybe for New York Red Bulls fans is that maybe you do see some sort of production line. Maybe Chris Armas is able to just keep implementing that same Jesse Marsch style system, and we have a conveyor belt of coaching talent come out of Red Bull Arena, just like maybe there's some playing talent. Because here's my next question. What does this do for Tyler Adams? Does Jesse Marsch being the assistant coach at Leipzig and maybe 3 years from now Salzburg make Tyler Adams more or less likely to get himself a move over to either Bundesliga?
Yes.
Austrian or German? More likely.
More likely, I think. Because I don't think that there's been any obvious bad blood between the two. Like certainly there's probably been moments
between which two?
Between Tyler Adams and Jesse Marsch.
Oh no,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm putting one finger over the other here.
What I mean to say is I'm sure you can find an article where Jesse Marsch said he needs to challenge himself more, he needs to work on this, and you could take that to mean negative.
You know what happens? Tyler Adams goes away and does that.
Exactly. That's the difference. And so no, I think if anything, having a manager there or an assistant coach there now who can say like, no, trust me, this kid is the real deal. He can come in and do this. He has these weaknesses. If anything, I would say it sets Tyler Adams up on a better trajectory because now he can come in and there isn't an unrealistic expectation of, not saying this is the case, but say Tyler Adams has trouble like with his first touch and turning into pressure. That like Jesse.
Just to pick an example at random.
I really don't know that. Does he? I can't remember if he does.
There's some criticism of his half turn.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. So Jesse Marsch knows that, and say they're 100% relying on him to come in and do that.
I see.
Jesse Marsch can say no, he doesn't do that, but he does this very well, and it can kind of adjust the expectations accordingly.
Okay, so it could all work out for Tyler Adams. He could be joining Jesse Marsch soon because the summer transfer window is in effect.
Let me take off my rose-tinted glasses. Yes, I think it could work out.
All right, you ready to talk some World Cup?
I think so.
But first, we should talk about today's sponsor. Today's Total Soccer Show is sponsored by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is once again a sponsor of the Total Soccer Show. Why are you laughing at me?
Because I know this isn't the case, but it always sounds like you've momentarily forgotten who the sponsor is, and then you've excitedly remembered, and that's how you announce it. Because there's always today's sponsor is, then, I think it's just a millisecond too long pause, which makes me think, did he forget? And then you hit it.
I'm like Guy Pearce in Memento.
You do have... I did find it weird that you have all of our sponsors tattooed all over your body. That's a strange approach, but it works.
Joey Pants reminds me. All right, so SeatGeek is sponsoring today's show. With the SeatGeek app, you can buy and sell tickets online. It's never been easier. It is the best way to buy tickets to live events, be they singing events, comedic events, or sporting events. Taylor Rockwell, over there, assistant to the regional manager, has been scrolling through the SeatGeek app, looking for possible sporting experiences that Taylor and I could attend together.
I have.
What did you find?
And I know what you're setting up, but I want to say, you've just made me realize how much I also love Joe Pantoliano, and now I want to see a one-man show starring Joe Pantoliano. But until Joey Pants goes on tour, you could use SeatGeek to get tickets to the MLS All-Star Game, the upcoming MLS All-Star Game in Atlanta.
August the 1st?
We should know that because we're going to be in Atlanta.
Yes, we will.
But it will be the MLS All-Star team taking on Juventus, or vice versa, whichever you prefer. Tickets, I would say...
They're both taking on each other.
Yeah, there we go. Yes, in a casual, let's not hurt ourselves sort of approach, yes.
So, Juve versus MLS All-Stars. Always an interesting game that you shouldn't read too much into, is how I see the All-Star game.
100%.
But also worth watching,
yes.
Right? There'll be some talent on the field for Juve, right? Del Piero still plays? He does not.
It took me a minute. I was like, for the MLS All-Stars? I was very confused. I was like, what are you talking about?
Did I get you? I think I got you.
Well, no, I think it's because we did it was more so we did the conversation earlier about who will be there for Juventus from the World Cup. And it totally threw me with wait, what? What are you talking about? No, he's very much retired.
So if you think Italy didn't qualify for the World Cup, so Chiellini probably will be there, right?
Yeah.
Alexandro did not get picked for the Brazil squad. He'll probably be there.
Czech Republic didn't make it, so Pavel Nedved should be there. I'm going to further your joke. There you go.
Yeah, I wish it was early 2000s Juve instead. But MLS All-Stars versus Juve, August 1st in Atlanta, at Atlanta's stadium. SeatGeek has the wonderful feature where they traffic light it for you, green, orange, red, in terms of how good a value the tickets are for this event, the tickets that are on sale via the SeatGeek app.
Lots of tickets available in the low 60s range, but you could get $20 off that range by using the TSS code when you check out to get a $20 rebate, right?
Yep, $20 rebate off your first SeatGeek purchase when you download the SeatGeek app. Once again, that is free. Download the SeatGeek app. Then you click Settings. Then you enter the promo code TSS, 3 little letters, TSS, and that gets you $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase.
Here we are.
Asterisk, Pavel Nedved not included.
Fair enough. So thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's program. Now, Mr. Grove, 2 World Cup semifinals to get to.
Yes.
I think we're going to go heavy on France-Belgium, then theoretically go a little bit later on Croatia-England because that game is taking place on Wednesday. But in the end, I expect them to be roughly the same length, if not Croatia-England taking longer.
I was going to say, speak for yourself.
Yeah.
But up first, on Tuesday, it is France versus Belgium.
You forgot what day it was today,
in
didn't
the
you?
World Cup semi-final, only briefly.
Gotcha.
I'll check my tattoo. To 2 p.m. Eastern kick off. Actually, unfortunately, because I'm a bad podcast host, I didn't check, but I think it's on Fox. It should be. It's the World Cup semi-final. France versus Belgium. All right, there's lots to think about with this game. How would you like to start, Taylor?
With France.
Okay.
Because they're easier.
Why are they easier? Because we think we know what they'll do?
Because we think we have a very strong idea of at least the rough shape that they'll come out in. And we could probably get 10 of the 11 players. I think we could probably guess 11 of the 11 if we were forced to. Whereas Belgium, as evidenced by the Brazil game, are capable of doing 3 different formations in the same game at the same time.
I was joking with someone on Twitter that Roberto Martinez outperformed his expected tactics, or his X-tac.
I mean,
in the game against Brazil.
So maybe going off of France's relatively known approach allows us to maybe look at Belgium's unknown approach.
Okay, so let's start with France's relatively known approach then. I would expect a 4-2-3-1.
Agreed.
Right? And the rough shape would be Giroud as the central striker, Mbappe on the right, Antoine Griezmann underneath Giroud.
Yep.
And then the interesting part is the left mid in the 4-2-3-1 has been either Blaise Matuidi or when he was suspended, it was Tolisso, right? But that role is the important role because you're not really a left winger. You're also a central midfielder, and your job is to really drift around and be somewhat adaptable and willing to do a job. I would bet money that Matuidi gets his starting spot back after returning from suspension, even though Tolisso is heavily involved in both of France's goals against Uruguay.
I agree. Yeah. And I think that
just a seniority type thing.
And I would say this, if you see people saying that's a stupid decision, I would vehemently disagree with those people.
I would just avoid the conversation.
That's fair. But I do think that there's been a lot of criticism of Deschamps, specifically for sticking with Blaise Matuidi, going back to the Peru game. We've talked about it many, many times on this show, but I think that was an incredibly intelligent move by Deschamps to do that. And I think, so you're going to see, if you do see Matuidi start, you'll see people be frustrated by, Lamar can't get into this game, and Fekir can't get into this game, and as you said, Tolisso, all these guys who are so expensive and so attacking and so much fun. Why would you play this other guy?
Who theoretically have more enjoyable highlight reels, but they don't do the task that Matuidi will do. Exactly. He will do an important tactical job. We just don't quite know what that tactical job will be until Deschamps rolls it out.
I'm with you.
Fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he's man-marked to right back or he's filled in central midfield. He always does something to make everything work for everybody else.
Yeah, but I think, yes. And so with that in mind, when it comes down to it, I think you're absolutely right that Tolisso did a great job, but he didn't do a great enough job with Matuidi being bad enough, in my opinion. This is what I mean when I say I think there are people out there who think, Matuidi's terrible. How do you not start Tolisso? Yeah. I think Matuidi has done exactly what's been asked of him. So that's the one question mark I have, but I think it's probably Matuidi who starts.
So what are the big threats that France offer?
Well, really quickly, because then you have N'Golo Kanté and Paul Pogba rounding out the midfield, and then the kind of back four that we've come to expect.
Yep.
The biggest threat, is Kylian Mbappe. I think that's the one that most people have, if they didn't know him coming into the tournament, they have certainly learned his name now, or at least know him as the very fast young player for France who sounds like that Hanson song.
Exactly, yeah. So Mbappe's going to be essentially right wing, right? He'll maybe drift in field a little bit, but I would look for him either running at a stacked Belgium defence or counter-attacking in open water down that right side. And I think either is dangerous, but one's more dangerous than the other.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You leave space for him, it's as good as conceding a penalty kick.
And I want to say though,
because that's where it's leading.
True. But this is where France are, I think, underrated good because they kind of cover a lot of space. So say you have Mbappe get forward and then Mbappe goes inside a little bit. Pavard, the right back for France, who we expect will start, he is more than capable and inclined to get down the right wing, make those overlapping runs. So then you think,
or hit some volleys. He's a Nacho copier.
There we go. Nacho copier. So then you might think similar to Marcelo with Brazil, that leaves a ton of space down the right wing. Belgium can capitalize upon that. One thing that you and I have noticed on a number of occasions is that Paul Pogba, who will be one of those two holding midfielders, tends to drift out to the right when one or both of those right-sided players attacks for France. So even then, they've got this very strong, defensively disciplined, for France at least, and very capable of triggering attacks himself player who will sit deep and won't be so hell-bent on getting his name in the headlines, getting forward, getting goals. He is happy to do the role that Deschamps needs him to do for this team.
There we go. Yeah, which is one of the key triumphs, I think, of this France team. Have you seen any of their social media videos?
Yeah.
They're all sort of dancing and singing.
Did you see the one on the plane?
Yes.
Sounds so good.
Yeah, and I'm making fun of Griezmann for falling asleep, and there's all that stuff is happening. You get a real sense that everybody's in it together. All for one and one for all. to give it a Musketeers type thing.
I don't know who's who in that Musketeer scenario, but that's a conversation for another day.
Pogba's the tall one.
Sure.
Two things worth keeping in mind as well. I mentioned counter-attacks with Mbappe. Anytime Pogba wins the ball off someone in midfield and goes, you're in trouble.
Yep.
Anytime N'Golo Kante wins the ball off someone in midfield, you're in trouble. They have a lot of players very capable of winning the ball and starting a counter-attack. And then all of a sudden, you better be backpedaling or you better be already stacked and ready to defend.
100% agree. I think Antoine Griezmann is D'Artagnan. That's what I'm going with there. Yeah, but I think you're absolutely right, though. It sort of is. France are not surprisingly World Cup semifinalists, and I think a big part of that is because they have so much cover in so many places, but so many players who are capable of doing a variety of things that, like you might think, oh, we've got this locked down, but they have Paul Pogba who can directly spring those counterattacks, or Mbappe, or Griezmann, and Olivier Giroud can do the hold-up play or be lethal in the box.
We haven't mentioned Giroud so much, right? Yeah, he gives them the option to, if they feel like it, or if things are looking bad, just kind of go direct, and he'll flick it on or chest it down, or like he can settle the ball there so that you can begin an attack there. I think Giroud is sort of he's won his starting spot very much so, right? And I guarantee that he would start. I think he's very important to the attack.
So then maybe we can start blending a little bit here, because I would say I will be very curious to see what Belgium do to deal with Giroud. Not necessarily from do they have 3 in the back, 4 in the back, 5 in the back, but just do you try to step in front and win that ball and not let him have time to hold up play and lay it off and have those little combinations we've seen him have in this tournament? Do you try to step forward? I think that would be suicidal, but do you try to play a higher line?
Behind. I say no high lines. Yeah. No high lines against France.
So I just want to see
Learn from Argentina.
Do you sit somebody? Yeah, true. So then do you sit one of your holding midfielders if you're Belgium? Do you have Axel Witsel screening Giroud? That seems like it would be a bit of overkill in my opinion. But just how Belgium go about sort of neutralizing Giroud while still being able to deal with Griezmann and Mbappe.
I say get Vincent Kompany to grab his jersey.
That works.
I mean, really, so Belgium will probably have 3 centre-backs.
We think, yeah.
I would get one of them to just make sure they're always roughing up Olivier Giroud.
Yeah. I mean, that's one way to do it. Just let them know you're there.
Okay, so should we talk Belgium?
Sure.
Okay, who will be the Cardinal Richelieu?
I have not read Three Musketeers.
Oh, he's the guy that's always trying to stop them.
Sure. I mean, I guess Roberto Martinez then, since he's the one in charge and overseeing everything.
He does always have a cunning plan, it seems.
See, there we are.
So we have learned managerial respect.
You have read Three Musketeers far more recently than I have seen that terrible Paul W.S. Anderson movie.
Do you know we were talking about X-Men cartoons the other day? Growing up, I watched a lot of Three Musketeers cartoons.
Gotcha.
But they were all dogs, weirdly. It was like a dog cartoon. Do you remember this?
No.
It was called Dogtanian and the Three Musketeers.
First of all,
it was brilliant.
I feel like you now armed with the knowledge that you watched the X-Men animated series, I feel like your childhood wins in terms of the cartoons you watched. You always have a weird cartoon that I did not know existed. For me, the Three Musketeers, I think, is that Charlie Sheen one.
Oh no!
Where who's the
you poor child.
Gerard Depardieu. I was going to say who's the creepy Frenchman. I think he's one of them as well. So at least they got a little bit of French homage in there. Anyway, I think it's Roberto Martinez, just the one who's overseeing the plan for Belgium. Sidetrack.
So what's the plan going to be? So we mentioned in the previous show that against Brazil, it was this weird Transformer-style 3-4-2-1 that turned into a 4-3-1-2, and he managed to have like Chadli play left wing and central midfield, and he managed to have Meunier play right wing back and right back, and the whole thing kept moving in a way that gave them width against Brazil, but also made them narrow and compact when they had to be, and frustrated Brazil into going at those weird angles at them.
Yes.
Can they do the same again?
They can. I don't think they need to, but I also don't think they don't need to. And if you'll let me explain...
That's going to take some unpacking.
Okay. This is why I said start with France. Because that system worked very, very well because it was based, I think, on the idea that against Japan, they had that weakness because De Bruyne and Witsel in the middle were not enough. That you had to have more numbers in the middle to deal with attacks coming through the middle.
So this was Martinez fixing the problem he had against Japan for the game against Brazil.
Indeed. And one of the ways he went about fixing it was basically he spread Lukaku and Hazard. He put Lukaku in a situation where he was basically having to he was forcing Brazil's defenders to keep an eye on him, stay back, stay less attacking than they would have been otherwise.
Made Marcelo stay home.
Yeah. And then you have De Bruyne operating as almost a false nine in there, and it caused lots of problems for Brazil. But I think a lot of those problems...
Do you know Hazard had 10 completed successful dribbles in that game? Yeah, that's the big stat from that game. Hazard had 10 successful dribbles.
And I'm not surprised, because I think they did a really good job of confusing Brazil and forcing them into 1v1 situations where Hazard is always going to do very well. But I think a lot of those solutions or a lot of those approaches for Belgium were kind of uniquely catered to the vulnerabilities of Brazil, and that Brazil in that game without Casemiro.
So that's also then Lukaku on Marcelo is catered to Marcelo. Meunier becoming not a right wing back but then a right back is maybe catered to Neymar.
Yep.
Are we going to the same place then? Because I'm thinking that the big threat for France is Neymar's on the left, Mbappe's on the right.
Yep.
So it's a whole mirror image thing, and maybe this transformer two formations for the price of one thing doesn't work when the other team is the other way around.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it precisely. And you can't. Belgium don't have a left back. Basically, they have Carrasco, who is a left winger, who's playing as a left wing back.
Or Chadli in the most recent game, right?
Or
Carrasco was dropped.
Vertonghen is a center back who can play left back.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work so well. You can't just have, because with Meunier, he knows how to play right back. He can just be a right back. He can also be a right wing back. Carrasco certainly can't just be a left back. We've talked about his vulnerabilities there time and time again.
Yeah. I think on FIFA his number would drop the farther back he got.
Yes. So we talked about Chadli as well. Chadli, who started coming inside to block off options. That doesn't help you against Kylian Mbappe, who will be streaking down that side, Pavard as well, overlapping. So how Belgium go about dealing with and shutting down that right side for France is, as I've said a couple times in this World Cup, a vulnerability or opportunity that I'm very happy I don't have to solve or deal with.
One option might be to not do the fancy two formations thing and just go 4 at the back and 3 defensive midfielders, and then have De Bruyne, Hazard, Lukaku as your attacking options.
Yep.
Right? So this would again mean sacrificing Dries Mertens, right? Like he's in Apocalypto. Unfortunately, Dries Mertens has to be sacrificed so you can get more central midfielders in there, and maybe go Witsel, Fellaini, and I'm almost like riding for him, but Moussa Dembele. So you get 3 really solid central midfielders and just block off all the space through the middle and keep your fullbacks home again. Because I would argue that the last thing you want in this game is to be counter-attacked on. But the thing you do want for both teams is to be the counter-attacking team.
Yep.
So maybe if Belgium really hold back, but then just rely on, at some point we'll hit them with De Bruyne, Lukaku, Hazard on the counter, maybe Fellaini joining the ranks as well. I think that could be successful for Belgium.
I agree. I think I'm also, speaking of counterattacks, going to be very interested in how both of these teams approach set pieces, specifically free kicks and corner kicks when they're attacking.
Oh, is this the Grove theory?
What's that? Don't send your 2 centre backs forward, or 3?
Don't send your centre backs forward, or you'll get scored on.
I'm curious to see
when Kevin De Bruyne is present, it goes double.
Yes, and I would think with both of these teams, I think it's sort of don't send anybody forward. Maybe I would bet we set a record for number of short corners taken in a game, because I don't think you want to risk playing it in there and having them break. I especially don't think, given the distribution of Courtois and Lloris respectively, I think they both are more than capable of catching a cross, throwing it 60 yards, and launching a counterattack. So
or just rolling one in front of De Bruyne was a Courtois tactic, right?
Yeah. So I think how these teams approach attacking set pieces while still keeping yourself defensively solid, again, another thing that could very much control how this game turns out.
Interesting. Oh, one thing you mentioned to me this morning as we were sort of not seriously but just chatting about this game was you thought maybe a lot of yellow cards.
Yes,
yeah?
I did. Thank you for that reminder. Good job, Daryl. Good note taking. Because I mean that is how you deal with it.
I'm the assistant to the regional podcaster.
There we go. You're the Andy Bernard in this equation. Ed Helms becomes the number 3, I think. I think that is going to be a sign of how these teams are approaching breaking up counterattacks if you start to see those yellows come out thick and fast, because it's an easy way to stop a counter, to concede that professional foul, and because cards have reset now.
Yes.
Only a red card, I was going to say straight red, but only a red card will get you suspended for the final.
It's really worth underlining this, right?
Yep.
So if you've picked up a yellow throughout the tournament, you don't need to worry about picking up another yellow in this game. Everything gets reset, ready for the final. Gazza's tears finally led to some action on the part of FIFA.
Gazza's tears.
You remember that's what he was crying about,
yes.
was that he was going to miss the final that England did not get to.
That feels like if you ever write an autobiography, that's what it will be called. Strangely, another person's name in your autobiography, but Gazza's tears, the Dale Grove story.
Before we talk about England-Croatia...
What percentage of your adult life has has been shaped by Paul Gascoigne.
A large amount.
That's what I'm saying, man. I wasn't really joking.
No, I talked to my friend Hugh last night,
Yeah.
who's in London, talking about how's Gaza doing during this tournament. Because he's had some mental health worries. He was this big hero of 1990.
Of course.
He was like this very sad figure in 98 when he didn't make the World Cup squad. He was the hero of 96. And then we've just seen him have quite a few public breakdowns. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of English people very concerned about Paul Gascoigne.
Including
for
you.
28 years.
Yeah. Hence why he'll be involved in your autobiography, and I look forward to it. So, yes, I think that's France-Belgium previewed more or less. That said,
I go more.
I'm pretty confident in what we said about France. I can't wait until Belgium come out in like a 2-8-0 formation, and I'm thoroughly flummoxed.
It'll be something.
Yep.
It'll be something of interest.
Yep.
Today's show is sponsored by ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN can get you a UK IP address. It is a virtual private network. There are many uses for a virtual private network. For example, if you're out using public Wi-Fi, ExpressVPN, a VPN will just keep your online stuff a little more secure. But you can also use it to get IP addresses for other countries.
This is true. That's how I used it to watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, because we don't have Hulu. That's like the only streaming service we don't go with, and that's the one I kind of wish we had the most. Hulu, if you're listening, we're more than welcome to advertise on the show. Yes, but because they have so many of the different shows that I like to watch, including Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but the Dutch version of Netflix has Brooklyn Nine-Nine, so there you go.
Did it turn up dubbed or anything like that? Did you have to mess with any settings?
No.
You
English.
Straight.
I think it had subtitles that I removed. But that's about it. Yes.
Very nice. I looked at a similar thing. I've been watching The Americans. Have you ever seen that show?
Yes.
Yeah, it's great, right?
I still keep waiting for Felicity to grow her hair back, but yeah,
you got to stop with the Felicity stuff and accept the new character. But I found on French Netflix the entire The Americans ready to go. If you would like to watch the England-Croatia game on British TV, this week it's on ITV, not BBC, but you can use ExpressVPN to get a UK IP address. You go to ITV Hub and you can see the game as British people, specifically English people, who will be the most excited about this game, will be seeing it.
Do you immediately start screaming at Raheem Sterling if you're watching it?
I think that's part of the contract.
Okay.
If you're an England-based English fan who doesn't have a very good understanding of how soccer works.
Well said. To unlock access to the streaming content you want today and find out how you can get 3 months free, go to expressvpn.com/totalsoccershow. That's expressvpn.com/totalsoccershow for 3 months free with a 1-year package.
Once again, that's expressvpn.com/totalsoccershow. Thank you to ExpressVPN for sponsoring today's show. We'll put the link in the show notes so you can easily click it.
Alrighty. And with that said, we move on to our 8-minute/45-minute preview of Croatia v. England, knowing that we will probably also touch on this game on tomorrow's show.
So there'll probably be an update on injuries and who's tired and all that sort of stuff by the time we get to tomorrow's game, right? So but let's at least take a good look at it now.
We will. But first, apropos of completely nothing, I just was remembering, I have always been told that the Scottish national animal is the unicorn.
Yeah.
That's you can Google it and that's the truth. I just need people to know, because I forgot to mention this a long time ago and I was telling my wife about this, that during this tournament, you informed me that the unicorn is on the British passport, and I did not believe you.
It's the United Kingdom.
And it cracks me up that there is just a straight-up unicorn on the British passport. It makes me love you all the more.
I think there's a lion for England and a unicorn for Scotland.
It's so wonderful. It's just so great. Because I always thought it was just sort of
England's magical.
It seems that way.
Yeah, you got platform 9 3/4, all that stuff.
Sure. You listed the one thing you remembered from Harry Potter and moved on quickly. I love it. Good job. Let's move on quickly.
You've got a government that's falling apart.
That's you. I was wondering if we were going to dip our toe into that one.
All kinds of charm. Yeah, but no more. No more.
Let's talk about Croatia, England
Just
instead.
the tip of the toe. Yeah, so things that are making people happy in England right now. And they really are. So again, spoke to Hugh last night.
Yeah.
I've spoke to my parents. It's been sunny for 3 weeks in England. Apparently the it's coming home thing that everybody talks about started out very tongue-in-cheek as it's not. This team's not great. It's not coming home. Now it's become real. People are very up on this team. People are very, very excited. No matter what happens against Croatia, this team's getting a hero's welcome when they come home.
As well they should, I think. I am inclined to believe that they will not be coming home after this game. That is my feeling, and I will knock on wood about that. And I think a lot of that is because we've spent a decent amount of time looking at Croatia and how they might approach this game, and I keep feeling like no matter it kept feeling like plugging the hole in the dam, and you're like pulling one finger out to plug another hole. I know that's not how dams work. If there's a crack in the dam, you're in trouble. Yeah. But for purposes of this analogy, it feels like if you're Croatia, you're pulling one finger out to plug another, and you're opening up another hole.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Whereas for England, I think we can basically name the starting 11, right? And it's the same one that started the quarterfinal. Unless somebody's tired or injured or anything like that, then I think the England team is very much the 3-1-4-2 that I'm not even going to name it because I think everybody should know it by now if you've been watching the tournament, that turns into a 5-3-2, a very solid 5-3-2 when defending. The defenders get the ball to Jordan Henderson, and then Ali and Lingard and Sterling are moving from there, and you've got wing-backs like Young and Trippier out wide, capable of putting in great crosses. Like all of that is happening for England, and then every time they win a set piece, England are... I'm thinking about this before I say it. England are the most dangerous team in the World Cup on set pieces.
I think they're the only team.
Statistics would bear that out.
I think they're the only team we've seen where you and I kind of went back to the idea that maybe they're playing for set pieces. They're trying to earn corners and free kicks because they know they can be particularly lethal off of them.
And I've come across a new bit of information. I think most people probably would already have known, but we haven't talked about it on the show. England have a specialist set piece
There is no way
coach.
That most people know this, Daryl.
Okay. So Alan,
you have been deep diving England.
Alan Russell is on the England coaching staff. He's played over here in the United States. He played for Orange County Blues and Carolina Railhawks. Towards the end of his career, he's Scottish, so he's unicorn inspired. So towards the end of his career here in the US,
unicorn inspired,
he got interested in a lot of American sports have special teams stuff, right, where you specialize in just coaching one aspect. Started selling himself as a specialized set piece coach. England employed him, and that's why they've had one guy running and devising these set pieces that have been so successful for England, like the 2 stacks of 3 or the stack of 6, all that stuff that's going on with England's corner kicks that's been so successful to getting it on the head of Maguire, Stones and Kane.
So I want to say at this point, though, that I'm aware that you and I are both pulling for England. You more than I, but still we both are rooting for England. And I don't want what we're saying to sound like, oh, you guys are just fanboys, you're being disrespectful to Croatia, you don't know what you're talking about. I think what it always comes down to for me is the team that I think is the one who has like the kind of standard set foundation, and then they can evolve off of it as the situation requires. That's the team that I tend to think has the advantage. I think that's why, if you ask me, I would say there's a good chance Belgium wins, but if you made me choose, I would say it's maybe France, England in the final. And I think that's because France have a more set game plan for how they're going to deal with stuff. I think the same goes for England. That said, Croatia, obviously, are here, very talented, have played against open teams, like very defensive teams, possession teams, bunkered teams, and they've been able to find their way through. So don't get me wrong, Croatia, very talented and will definitely be very tricky, and I wouldn't be surprised in there in the final. But I think right now, given what we've kind of talked about, I still give the edge to England.
So we know the England team. Let's talk about what we think Croatia will do about it. And I think it all comes down to how Dalic decides to deploy Luka Modric and Ivan Rakitic.
Agreed.
They definitely will both be in the midfield, but the only question to me is, are they the 2 deepest midfielders with Kramaric ahead of them, or do they sit on top of Brozovic? And Brozovic being the lone defensive midfielder, and then Rakitic and Modric are allowed to go farther up the field.
So
I think that's the key decision for Croatia is, does Kramaric start or does Brozovic start? And it's 2 very different looks based on what they do. Because then it's either a 4-1-4-1 with Brozovic, or it's a 4-2-3-1 with Modric and Rakitic and Kramaric ahead of them.
Yes.
Hope that makes sense.
It does. I think it does, at least. It does to me. And the weird thing is that if we had just kind of like sat down and started recording, I would have said you have to play Brozovic. There's no way they don't, because against Nigeria in the first half they didn't look as strong. I think a big reason,
because he wasn't there.
Yeah, I think a big reason why they struggled with Russia is because Brozovic wasn't there until he was, and then I think they looked more solid.
Because it sets Modric and Rakitic free to go do damage higher up the field, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the issue that I think Croatia run into with England is that obviously England have Jordan Henderson in the position central where he can link play and cause problems for opposition attacks.
I've been calling him the distributive midfielder, right? That he's the ball.
It's like a math problem, but sure.
Yeah, but he's the ball that the defenders look to, and then he opens things up. It's what he did against Sweden, right? He got free, then England won that corner kick. Or somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but slightly less so as the tournament's gone on. I've been calling him the English Busquets.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. So then the idea would be like, okay, so maybe you start Kramaric, and he tries to block off Jordan Henderson, and then you theoretically free up Luka Modric and Ivan Rakitic to have a bit more freedom to kind of play as they want. But then obviously that maybe then frees up Dele Alli.
Yeah,
and
Ali and Lingard run free, right? If you do that,
Yeah. So
or you shackle Modric and Rakitic with trying to man mark those, and suddenly all your creative midfielders are doing defensive jobs.
And this is why I go back to I don't really know what Zlatko Dalic will do to deal with that, because again, it feels like if you shut off one option, you're leaving another one free. I think Tifo Football did a really good explainer of why Raheem Sterling has been underrated in this tournament.
Yeah.
A big part of that is that if he's not getting the ball, he will drop 40 yards even deeper than Jordan Henderson to pick the ball up. Who do you have tracking that? Do you start Brozovic and have him go with, but then you've left space in behind? Do you have him directing everybody in front of him? Oh, Sterling is making this run, or somebody needs to be on him. That's an awful lot of pressure for one player.
And speaking as, if I'm trying to think of this analytically and neutral, and not as an England fan, I liked Croatia against Argentina. Part of that was Argentina opening themselves up. But wasn't that the game when Brozovic just did...
the sliding back and forth?
Sliding left to right in front of the defence, screening job, not letting anything through, and leaving Modric and Rakitic ahead of him.
I mean,
I think that
also,
works for Croatia.
I agree. I think they also were obviously tasked with moving laterally to kind of make sure that they, too, were closing off options. But yeah, it was very much heavily dependent on Brozovic doing the Brozovic things.
Here's what I would do if I was Croatia. And I know how arrogant that sounds, but, just spinning ideas here. I would have Mario Mandzukic as my centre forward, and he's obviously all kinds of danger as a target man, as a link-up guy, as a guy who can run in the channels. I'm a big admirer of Mario Mandzukic, but I would have him not pressure England defenders with the ball, but stand off of them and maybe just screen Jordan Henderson. Then that job is taken care of by your forward, leaving the midfielders to do other things.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a way to do it. I think what I go back to then is this idea that I'm aware of how obvious this is about to sound, but it's worth stating that your goal as a manager is to put your players into a position where they can be attacking and get the goals they need to get for you to win the game without leaving yourself vulnerable. And so I think you could have all your players shift around and he's focused on this guy and he's focused on that guy, but then you're being very reactive and you're sort of hoping that you get a counterattacking opportunity or a set piece.
And you just get dragged out of shape, right?
Yeah.
I actually think for all of Croatia's ability to retain the ball, you think of Modric and Rakitic as guys who could literally just dribble in circles and pass to each other and never cough the ball up. But then if they're trying to possess, they can get sort of split apart from, say, Mandzukic and Perisic and Rebic, right? So they can't connect to the forwards. I think Croatia's best chance is some sort of counter-attacking type thing.
Yeah.
So I would go Brozovic deep, Modric and Rakitic, and even maybe just have them trying to win the ball off of England as they try to play out of the back. And then they can go, right? Then Modric and Rakitic and Mandzukic and Rebic and Perisic are all over England. And I think England, they're good for one coughing the ball up while playing out of the back mistake per game, right? Kyle Walker is capable of doing that. Maguire's capable of doing that. Stones is not immune to overconfidence with the ball despite his heavy talents. I think that's an opportunity for Croatia, but it would require more patience than they've shown in previous games.
Agreed, yes. The other, I'd say, vulnerability that Croatia will have to deal with is we believe standard starting right back Sime Vrsaljko will be out with injury. That means probably they will start the way they finished against Russia, which is you'll have Vida slide to the right, Damagoje Vida, I think it is, and then Vedran Čorluka coming in as your other centre back.
It's weird, right? There's no actual other right back. There's just Vida filling in. I believe I've seen Čorluka play right back for Spurs back in the day. I'm guessing he's no longer athletically gifted enough.
Foot.
Yeah, that's a better way of saying it.
And this is why, I think I showed you, in our very big group preview, that was one of my concerns with Croatia is they had no right back.
You showed me the binder earlier.
Yeah, I think mostly just to calm you down because I think you were a little bit nervous. But I'm very curious how Vida does playing, if it's Vida, playing as a right back for 90 minutes because not only are you moving him into a position where he has less familiarity, but
he's
now
done it before though, right?
True.
Plenty.
But he's certainly a center back who can play right back, not a right back who can play center back.
Yeah.
But on top of that, you've played the whole tournament with Lovren and Vida.
Yeah.
So then, I mean,
pretty successfully.
Yeah. I think there's been some, obviously they rotated a lot of players for their third game against Iceland, I think it was. So what they do in this game, like it's still they may have played together at times, Chorluka and Lovren, but it's still breaking up that center back pair that's worked so well.
The one thing that I think is to Croatia's advantage if they have to do this, right? They maybe lose out on the forward abilities of Veselko. But I think Vida might make up for it. He won the corner against Russia that he then scored from. It adds an extra aerial threat or an aerial defensive ability on Croatia's part, because then you've got three centre-backs in your back four, right? So Vida, Chorluka, Lovren, Mandzukic is good enough in the air. Rebic is not a short guy, right? So suddenly England's aerial dominance on corner kicks might be under threat from some of Croatia's bigger guys.
Might be.
And I know it's about the movements and the Alan Russell designed plays and all that, but at some point, just sheer height comes into it, right?
At some point. But I think people are capable of jumping, and Jordan Pickford has hands.
Fair enough. Speaking of goalkeepers, what do we make of Subasic? So I've seen a lot of people
I love him.
Suggest I can't remember who it was. I'm sorry. Someone, Adam Kalin, suggested to us on Twitter that Subasic couldn't dive properly during the penalty kicks because he had a hamstring injury. I don't think he had a hamstring injury at all, because I think they would have subbed him if he did. I think he just had cramp. Do you remember this moment when he went down in the game against Russia? We haven't seen the reports.
He went down a couple times, but yeah.
Yeah, I think an actual hamstring injury, you would have definitely subbed him because it's too dangerous to leave him in.
I agree with that. I didn't see any looks of discomfort in the shootout. We obviously watched that several times. I mean, obviously he went down on a couple occasions, but I don't think that limited him. You may still see an outfield player taking goal kicks potentially, but he is 100% going to start in my mind. All
right. Anything else to add on this game? I know we'll come back to it tomorrow, but I mean, I could talk for another 20 minutes. But
I know you could. Just going back to him for 1 second, it's a player we've talked about quite a bit. I think you asked me the other day, do I think like Sterling continues to start, or do we ever see Rashford? I have a feeling that Southgate genuinely doesn't care if Sterling scores. I don't think that's why Raheem Sterling is in this team.
Yeah.
Certainly he would like him to, but I think if you look at all of the criticism on Raheem Sterling, at least from like on the field performance, it's been about his lack of finishing, how he's missed opportunities, how he's not clinical. But if you
could just add, the die for this was cast in like the first 2 minutes of the game against Tunisia.
Yep.
Do you remember Sterling had a chance at the far
do.
post and missed? And I did. There's a little voice inside me that was like, "Oh, he's going to do that the whole tournament." My take is that it's worth the trade-off for everything else that he brings.
Here's what I was going to say, though, is that like I know this maybe sounds counterintuitive because he is in the 3-5-2, he is one of those front two. But I think if you remove that criticism of he is wasteful in front of goal and he doesn't take his opportunities, and you see it from maybe that's not what Southgate wants him to do. He doesn't care about his finishing. He cares about his running and his movement and how much he opens up space and how he links up play. If that's the only criticism and Southgate doesn't care, then it explains why Southgate sticks with him and has only backed him. Is because if you tell a player, I don't care if you score or not, I need you to make this run and do this, then when everybody's like, but he never scores, why are you still playing him? Like, he's literally said, I don't care if he scores. And I'm not saying that's what he's done, but it does explain to a larger extent why he sticks with Sterling and why he backs Sterling and why I think England have looked so good is because of the movement and versatility of Raheem Sterling.
I think when you add Sterling's movement to Dele Alli's movement to Jesse Lingard's movement, you get the thing that's been missing from England for the last 10 years or so, and it's movement.
Yes.
So we are full of young players who move and want the ball and receive the ball and can move it quickly when they get it. We highlighted in the last show Lingard's cross for Dele Alli, Lingard checking his shoulder 3 times, moving into space, knowing where everybody is. That's what that England attack is all about. It's not about whether Sterling finishes one-on-one with a keeper.
No, it is not. And with all that said, I will just say I think this might be my favorite World Cup semifinal like pairings ever. Like really? I would be
How
sad.
Very Eurocentric of you.
True. You're absolutely right. It is. I guess I mean more so not necessarily from a rooting interest. Like, I want England to advance. I would like England to win the World Cup. But it's more so there's not one team in there that I'm sort of like, you guys are boring, or I don't really care about you.
Yeah.
Like, France I've very much enjoyed France. I find them very entertaining. Belgium obviously have like lots of like craziness about what they could do and how they could approach it. Croatia have been consistently and thoroughly talented and entertaining and cohesive as a unit. Like, I just think all of these teams will be interesting and give us the opportunity for an interesting final, as opposed to two counter-attacking teams, and it's going to be a dire 120 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's true. Fingers crossed for that one.
So I am sad that there's no non-European competition. You're right.
You can't have it all. So we'll be back after Tuesday's game, France-Belgium, to give a review, and after Wednesday's game, England-Croatia, to give a review of that.
But before we go, Dale Grove, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 scouting reports to read out today, starting with Russell Finley, who's scouting Eric Palmer-Brown, the 21-year-old center back for Manchester City, for now. Except not even, because EPB has gone on loan to NAC Breda for the upcoming Eredivisie season. He will replace last season's starter Pablo Mari, and that should give him opportunities for quality minutes in a stronger league.
All right, so I'm looking forward to EPB in the Eredivisie.
Yep.
Anything that rhymes is good. Ed Ritter is scouting Ben Mines for us. Ed says...
Anything that rhymes is good?
Almost anything.
Okay.
Yeah. The 18-year-old American attacker for New York Red Bulls 2, Ben Mines. Ed says that Ben Mines played 55 minutes in Red Bull New York 2's 6-1 win over Atlanta United 2 before taking a knock to the knee and leaving the match.
I was still trying to think of rhyming things that you wouldn't like.
Well, alliteration is also good, like knock to the knee.
There we go. Russell Varner scouting Alex Mendez, the 17-year-old American midfielder for the LA Galaxy Academy. Mendez has continued to light up the U18/19 Developmental Academy playoffs, recording another free kick goal for the team, this time in extra time of their DA playoff semifinal matchup with Vancouver. For those and other efforts, he was named to the Western Conference Best 11 in that tournament.
Go on, Alex Mendez. He will play in midfield for the senior US men's national team at some point.
Do you want me to add that to your list of prognostications?
Please do. John Barnett is scouting Alexander Zinchenko, the 21-year-old Ukrainian midfielder/defender for Manchester City. Or is he? John says Alexander looks set to join Wolves, the Wolves, this summer as a reported fee of up to
Timberwolves.
As a reported fee of up to £16 million has been agreed between the two clubs. This transfer will give Zinchenko a great chance to get some playing time in the Premier League, and Wolves a promising talent who's already shown he can play with the best in the league.
Well done, Zinchenko. Daryl Grove, I know you're happy about that. You I think mentioned it 3 different times in the last week. But do you think he's good? Do you think he'll be okay? I think he'll be fine.
One thing I have come to realize
that's
is
right.
I've seen him at left wing back, which is where Barry Douglas plays for Wolves, and Douglas is one of my favourite Wolves players who I think really can hang in the Premier League. Zinchenko can also play central midfield. He's just, in a very Fabian Delph kind of way, been shunted out to left wing back to get in that Man City team.
I'm sure Barry Douglas will still be one of your favourites when he's playing for Cardiff. Don't worry. Ben Langevin scouting Curtis Jones, the 17-year-old English midfielder for Liverpool. Curtis Jones, a player I am not that familiar with. This is me, Taylor, talking. The reincarnation of Stevie G, says Ben, opened the Reds preseason with a brilliant overhead pass that Harry Wilson tapped in for a goal. He was subbed off at the half, but the youngster is off to a great start.
Pre-season started?
Yeah.
I guess so. Julie Nishimura Jensen.
Oh, yeah, man. People turning up today.
Is scouting Alan Halilovic, the 22-year-old midfielder for AC Milan. So Alan Halilovic is now at AC Milan. Julie says, when last we saw our hero, he was in dire straits. Not the band. Both the club that owned him, Hamburg, and his loan club, Las Palmas, had been relegated. However, on July 7th, Milan announced that he had signed on a free transfer with his contract running through 2021. This could be good for both parties, Halilovic and Milan, and for Julie.
It could be. I've done a decent amount of reading on Milan today. Still have no idea if they're in a good position or not. So their Chinese owner, I guess, defaulted on his loan or defaulted on his mortgage or something like that. Ooh. So now the American-owned conglomerate that was part of it, I think they now own the full control. They're going to invest, but also are looking for a buyer. It's very confusing. I don't fully understand what's happening at Milan, but that's not any different from, say, when they were owned by Silvio Berlusconi. That was still pretty confusing too.
Well, at least they've got Halilovic for nothing and his free kicks for free.
Hooray!
Thank you to everybody who sent scouting reports today. I just realised we didn't explain what the Scouting Network is. It is one of the ways that Taylor and I support this independent show. One of the ways we invite listeners to support our independent show. Yeah, that was bad grammar. Very poor grammar. So we are, as well as ads, we are a listener-supported show. We ask people to go to totalsoccershow.com/join and take up what's basically a voluntary subscription. If you subscribe at $5 a month or more, we give you a young player. We assign you a young player to keep an eye on. We're heavily US focused, but also lots of other great young players around the world. And then you provide content for us to read in the Scouting Network updates.
Beautiful.
Another part of the show is at $10 a month or more, you get a player, but we guarantee to answer a listener question per month. I mention this because we haven't done it for a month because of this World Cup thing that's been happening.
I'm afraid of the backlog of listener questions.
I am excited for the backlog of listener questions because while we're on the road doing the World Cup Comedy Tour, our plan is to do a lot of listener question shows so we can really address lots of listener questions and address all those interesting questions that people have for us.
All right, never mind. You swayed me. I'm excited about the listener question backlog. I've changed my mind.
There we go. So if you want to ask us a question, it's totalsoccershow.com/questions. If you want to support the show, it's totalsoccershow.com/join.
All of that is accurate.
All of that is accurate. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll be back again tomorrow after France versus Belgium.